The word of this video is imitation. And basically, imitation means to copy. Now, there's an old saying out there. There's a well-known quote from Oscar Wilde, and many of you have heard this quote where it states that imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. Or is it? Nonetheless, we are going to talk about imitation on this episode of the Growth Times Infinity podcast. So let's grow and let's go. Reggie B coming at you once again. I appreciate you all tuning in as we continue the series, Our Habitual Ways, which is based on the book Atomic Habits by the author James Clear. We've been breaking it down chapter by chapter, page by page, and now we are in chapter 9. So let's briefly talk about the previous video. We discussed, in order to implement good habits, we have to make it attractive. We're going to talk about that a little bit more on this video as well. With that, we're going to talk about imitation and what that has to do with our habits. So let's get into it, because we talk about the current habits that we have, the current habits that we are implementing, whether they're good, effective, whether they're bad, ineffective. The reason why we engage in our current habits is likely because we saw someone else doing it. And as we see others doing these habits, that's where it all started, because it looked good to us. It looked attractive to us. We saw someone doing something and we kind of said to ourselves, you know what? That looked like something that I can do. That looks good. I'm going to start doing that. I'm going to start implementing that. And then from there, it becomes a habit at some point. So once again, we're talking about imitation. We're talking about copying others, right? So in the book, James Clear mentions that we imitate the habits of 3 groups in particular. So those particular groups are the close, the many, and the powerful. So let's talk about the people who are close to us. Let's talk about imitating the close. We pick up habits from people around us, according to James Clear. Family members, friends, co-workers, people that we are close to. If you think about it, when we was growing up in our household, whatever our moms was doing, whatever our dads was doing, we would watch them closely. And with that, normally what we do is we copy, we imitate what they're doing. Our habits, our behavior, all that good stuff. The same thing with friends. When we was growing up, and even now, to an effect, we copy, we imitate the behavior and perhaps the habits of some of our friends as well, because they are in close proximity. Co-workers as well. We work on our job and we're amongst our co-workers. We may dress a certain way because our co-workers do. We perform work probably because the way that our co-workers perform their work as well. And it was mentioned in the book also, as a general rule, the closer we are to someone, the more likely we are to imitate some of their habits. That's what I just mentioned. Being around family members, being around friends, being around coworkers. We have a tendency to do the things that they do. So since we have a tendency to imitate the people who are close to us, our family, friends, coworkers. Now, if we imitate them, they could be good habits. They could be not so good habits. They could be neutral habits. But if you want to, kind of get to the point where you want to implement good habits for sure, we want to make them more attractive. And when it comes to imitation, if you want to make your habits even more attractive, the author James Clear suggests that we join a culture where your desired behavior is the normal behavior and you already have something in common with the group. So let's say you want to pick up a new hobby and you want to make it a habit. What you want to do is you want to find like-minded people who engage in the same hobby, right? Whether it's content creating, whether it's being a podcaster, it could be a sport. You may want to be active. So maybe you join a gym, or maybe you join a bike riding group, a walking group, a running club, whatever the case may be. If you have a desire to pick up a new habit, it's good to surround yourself with a culture, with some like-minded people who are doing the same thing that you have a desire to do. So we talk about imitating the close. We also want to talk about imitating the many, which I would refer to as imitating the masses. And with that, in the book, James Clear says that whenever we are unsure how to act, we look to the group to guide our behavior. And when I think about that, I think about being a sports fan. So with me, I'm from Houston. And like most Houstonians who are into sports, we're fans of the Houston Texans, the Rockets, the Astros, because that's where we are. But in a sense, are we imitating other people? Perhaps that could be the case, imitating the masses, because we all live in Houston. So many of us, we cheer for our home team. That's something that came to mind when I thought about imitating the many, imitating the masses. Also in the book, in chapter 9 of the book Atomic Habits, James Clear states that there can be a downside to imitating the many. The normal behavior of the tribe often overpowers the desired behavior of the individual. So when I thought about that, I thought about social media. Now with social media, there is some good in social media. I know this because like when I'm working on my personal development, when I'm working on my health and wellness, when I'm working on my spiritual growth, I come across a lot of valuable information via social media. I have, seen some influencers who have provided some great value, some great insight. I've read some posts. I've come across different ways to improve in various areas of my life. Along with that, and we all know this, there is some foolishness on social media as well. There's these trends and there is these challenges. There's different stuff out there on social media that a lot of people have a tendency to imitate. Y'all probably remember the little challenge with the milk crates, right? Where people was stacking milk crates. They were stacking them up different levels, and then they would just either run up and down and run across it, trying to make it all the way through. And then the milk crates would collapse and they would bust they behind. Now you would think that when someone sees that, they don't want to try that. But then it went from one person doing it to 10 people doing it to 100 people doing it to thousands of people doing it. And it's crazy. And that's the point that I'm putting out there is like, although there's some good stuff on social media, there's some foolishness on there as well. And some of this stuff is borderline criminal. And even with that, some of these things are criminal acts. But it's something about when people do certain things on social media, especially the foolish stuff, people imitate it. They imitate the many. They imitate the masses. And I also want to talk about imitating the powerful. For instance, people that we hold in high regard, people that we view as successful, people that we look up to. Those are another type of group that we imitate. I can relate because with me being a YouTuber, with me discussing personal development, there are some people that I look up to. There are some people that I view as successful. There are some people that I hold in high regard. So I can definitely relate to that, as many of you can relate to that as well. No matter what you're trying to do, you may look up to somebody within your career. I'm I'm pretty sure people who strive to be an athlete, who want to be an athlete, I'm pretty sure they look up to maybe Patrick Mahomes, or they look up to Kevin Durant or any other athlete. You know, people who strive to be an actor or an actress, they look up to Denzel Washington. They, look up to Halle Berry or whoever. They hold these people in our high regard. And from there, what they may do is, if some influencers or celebrities, if they share what made them successful, the steps that they took, the actions that they took, they may share with you, well, I did this. I started off with this. If we hear this, we have a tendency to imitate them. We imitate their plan of action, and what we do is we see if that's going to work out for us because it worked out for them. So imitating the powerful. So those are the three types of groups that we imitate. We imitate the close, friends, family members, co-workers. We imitate the many, the masses, people in groups. And we imitate the powerful, people that we hold in high regard, people who are successful, that we view as successful, people that we look up to. So as I'm reading this book, Atomic Habits, chapter 9 specifically, and it talks about imitation. It talks about copying people. I was thinking about something, right, in regards to that. Imitating people and copying people, it may not last forever. Before I get into that, I want to break down the quote that I shared with you earlier. And it was Oscar Wilde's quote where it says, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. Now, many of us, we've heard that quote before, but there is a second part to that quote. Some of you may know it and some of you may not. While I was doing research on imitation and doing research for this video, I didn't realize it was a second part to this quote. I was always made aware of the first part. Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. But let me share with you the entire quote because we're going to break this down and I'm going to share with you my thoughts on it. Oscar Wilde says, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery that mediocrity can pay to greatness. Now, I feel like what that suggests, and when I was doing the research online, there are some other sources that they feel that quote may suggest. It may suggest that although we are imitating and we're copying people, with that, there's a lack of originality. So that's why I say imitation and copying, it'll only take you so far. Now, it's all good when we implement a good habit, when we implement a successful habit, not a successful habit, but when we implement an effective habit and we start off and we want to make it attractive. One of the ways to make it attractive is to imitate or copy those three groups of people that I broke down, right? Making it attractive. And we talked about it in a previous video as well. When we implement and we start a new good effective habit, you want to make it attractive. But you can only do that for so long. Same thing applies to imitation and copying someone. I feel like you can only do it for so long because after a while, it's all on you. And that applies to good habits and bad habits. For example, when we were young lads, some of us anyways, I'm not going to speak for everybody, some of us have been exposed to alcohol, and some of us have been exposed to alcohol at an early age. When we was young, perhaps a family member introduced us to alcohol. Say young blood, say cuz, say kinfolk, drink some of this yak, see what it tastes like. Man, taste this Schlitz malt liquor. And we drink it. Why do we make the decision to drink it? It's because, we was asked. We felt like it was cool. Perhaps we felt like It's a way for us to solidify ourselves as family, to fit in. So you was introduced to the liquor, to the alcohol, and then from there, you keep drinking it. You know, you started off young, you started off underage, you go into your adult life, and you still drinking alcohol. It's all on you. You was introduced to it, but now you're making the decision to continue to drink alcohol. And I'm not just talking about on occasion, you know, socially. I'm talking about to the point where it's excessive, where it's to the point where it has an effect on your mental well-being or on your health and wellness, and to the point where you are considered an alcoholic and it's causing health issues. It was introduced to you, you imitated, you copied it, and then you made it a habit. After a while, it was all on you. And the same thing applies to good habits as well. Perhaps someone in your family, your parents, maybe an older sibling, maybe an aunt or an uncle, was a successful athlete in college and perhaps made it to the pros. So they're guiding you now as a youngster. They're guiding you, they're coaching you, they're training you. They working with you one-on-one to the point where you're working up to become a successful athlete. You done work through Pop Warner in a little league, middle school, high school, college, and perhaps you made it to the pros as well. At some point, it was all on you, because while you were being coached, while you was being trained, and while, you know, your parents or, you know, another one of your family members was working with you one-on-one, at some point it became all on you to become a supreme athlete. Perhaps you grew up in a household, you know, that was religious, a religious household. You know, your parents, your people said that you're a Baptist, you're a Christian, you're a Catholic, whatever the case may be. You grew up in that. So now you take that into your adult life, and that's who you are. Imitation, copying. All I'm saying is, whether your current habits are good or bad, it's all on you. You get to a point in your life where it's all on you. If you are constantly engaging in a bad habit, it's all on you to break that bad habit. Yes, good habits, bad habits, they become automatic and unconscious. You do them without thinking. But when it comes to bad habits, you have to make a conscious decision to break that bad habit. The same thing goes for a good habit. In order to sustain that good habit, it's all on you. Whatever habit that you picked up when you was young and you carried into your adulthood, you started off by imitating, you started off by copying someone. That's great. But there's levels to this. And in order for you to level up, imitation, copying only takes you so long. It only takes you so far. After a while, it's all on you. Peace and blessings to you as you continue your journey. So let me know what you think about this. Chapter 9 of the book Atomic Habits. We talk about imitation. We talk about copying, how we make habits more attractive by imitating the close, the many, and the powerful. We talked about all that. So let me know what you think about this. How do you plan on making your habit more attractive? If you're trying to implement good, effective habits in the year 2026, we here, y'all. It's the year 2026. By the way, the first episode of the Growth Times Infinity podcast this year. So we're talking about making habits attractive. So will you be implementing good, effective habits by imitation, by copying? Feel free to leave a comment below. I would love to receive your feedback. I am Reggie B, aka The Growth Advocate, and I appreciate you all tuning into this episode of the Growth Times Infinity Podcast. And until the next time, keep growing and keep going.